Hello and welcome back to my YouTube channel, The Matrix Game of Life. Today we're going to continue with part 4 of the flow and the framework of the game. And I'll be right back with you after a word from my artificial intelligence sponsor.
Hello, and welcome to The Matrix Game of Life. It is the generosity of viewers like you that makes this channel possible. If you find the information provided as being beneficial, please send a thank you gift. It will be much appreciated. A PayPal link can be found in the description section of all videos. May your Matrix experience be one of health and of prosperity.
Okay, as stated, this is part 4 of the game, flow, and framework. And in our last video, in part 3, we spent a lot of time talking about the game assumptions. You can go back and review those. Let's not spend any more time on them. Now, let me say about that. Remember, the game assumptions were agreements between source fractals. Then, once agreed upon, that information was fed into the artificial intelligence, the demiurge, to program it so that when its data was fed into your sleeping, dreaming mind, that's what you would envision. The universe, the sky, the trees, the leaves, the rivers, the oceans, whatever. Okay, we went over it. Now, today I want to get into soul contracts. The contract phase, the contracts that we make and agree to with the demiurge, who whips up a program for us, and we live that program just about verbatim until we raise our frequency enough. When we raise it from levels 3 or 4 to level 5, it's at level 5 that we can unlock our script and really start playing the game, start challenging the programming that's coming into our mind. Before I get into all of that though, I thought this is a good time to bring to your remembrance something that's very, very, very important. There is nothing that exists that is not source. Nothing. Source and existence itself are synonymous. They mean the same thing. Things exist, but the things that exist are not existence itself. That's a very crucial point to tuck away, because in the long run, yes, we were in source as source. I don't recall it, but like I said, I do look forward to it again. Although I know that I will leave there once again as a source fractal and continue to experience. That is a source player's, a source cell fractal, a source player. That is our function, is to experience. Now, yes, we did create the primary matrix, the universes, everything. But it was all created within Source. And it's a game. We created the primary matrix for our enjoyment, to create whatever we wanted to create, to do whatever we wanted to do. We were only limited by our imaginations. And yes, we created games, and we created this game, which required its own matrix for reasons that I've discussed. At least I think I have. If I haven't, we're going back over that anyhow. But the point is, everything is Source. Everything. We talk about dimensions and frequencies and planes and densities. All of that's within the primary matrix. It's all well and fine. It's all part of the games. It's all part of experiencing. And yes, there are many, 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 many frequencies. Many. Wow. I mean, they're innumerable. And yes, Source is all those frequencies. But Source is none of them. It's not this or that. It's like both and. It's like you could say that Source is the culminations of all frequencies combined. However, you got to take it a step beyond that and understand the Source is beyond all frequencies. And so were we when we were cells of Source. Frequencies didn't come into play for us until we entered into the primary matrix. And one thing I want to say about that, I'm just going to touch on this now. When we entered into the primary matrix, we entered in at the highest level that you could be at. We had our backs to the wall, so to speak, right on it. The highest level, the highest frequency. I don't remember that, but I know it's how it's happened because I've been shown. Now, we talk about a descent. I've talked about a descent anyhow. A descent through the densities and the planes and the dimensions and the frequencies. And I laid out a diagram. I divided them up into 12 parts. I don't know that there are 12 densities. If you read the diagram correctly, I said I'm using it as a model to show that we came from a density the highest, and we descended down, 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 down over billions of years until we finally ended up at the physical plane of the primary matrix, which is the most dense. Now understand this. When we entered into those high frequencies, when we first came into the primary matrix, there was no such thing as a physical plane. As we experienced, as we created all frequencies, all densities, all planes, all dimensions, all frequencies of those dimensions, we created as we descended. We created it all. It didn't come whole. The primary matrix was whole, but the contents of it we created over vast periods of times. Billions, trillions of us. Until finally, when we got in our experience of creating and experiencing our creations, when we got to the level where things were so dense and so heavy, right down to rocks, there just was really no, that's as far as we got to, because things got tough. Our experience got hard. Nevertheless, we took it a step further. We created another matrix within the primary matrix, the secondary matrix, and we created the matrix game of life. Remember, we entered into the primary matrix, which we created, and as we descended, we created and then experienced what we created, as well as we experienced creating it. It's a marvelous thing. It is so intricate and so vast, so mind-boggling that, wow, that's all I could, I'm left speechless. It's just so, just look at what we're experiencing here. The other day, I watched on television a golf match. It was beautiful. It was fun to watch. It was entertaining. I love golf. When I was a younger man, I played a lot of it. And then I watched other things. Like I can go out into the street and walk around and I can see what's going on. Some of it's wonderful and some of it is not. Some of it is not. All of us have experienced things that weren't on our menu, man. We didn't want them. I spent most of my adult life as a paramedic. That was in my script. And I saw a lot of sick and injured over nearly a 30-year time span, linear time. I saw a lot of people die. I knew men in the military, basket cases coming, war, and then there's love, amore. And all of that All of it. I don't care if it's dog droppings on a sidewalk. All of it is source. As you and as me, experiencing all these things. There are no boundaries, but it's an ever expansive play of new experience that is eternal and without the possibilities are unlimited. But it is all source. That's what I am. That's what you are. And this is our experience right now. The game is to change the experience and get out of this density that we created and start a trip into something a little bit cleaner, without all of the ugliness. You know, it's like asking the question, what happens when we die? Well, what happens is that we find ourselves in a situation that we believed before we died. What we believed about death and dying and what happens after death, that's what we find. Why? Because we created it. It's like saying, is there a hell? Well, I'm going to go out on a limb and just say it. I don't like to sound like a narcissist. I get accused of that all the time anyhow. My daughter, she told me the other day, she said, Dad, you're losing your mind. And I said, hey, maybe. I said, or maybe I've learned to use it. My daughter, anyhow, like she calls me a narcissist. She loves that. I think all kids think their parents are narcissists because the parents are always trying to teach the kids and the kids don't want to hear it, man. I didn't when I was young. I've been over that. But anyhow, remember, it's all source. All of it. It's all source as you and me experiencing. I don't care if it's aliens in the seventh dimension, the eighth or ninth dimension, in the whether they're from Arcturus or the Pleiades or wherever they're from, they're playing their own game, and we are not actually seeing that. We are being fed that data, and we see it as a dream. We've never laid our physical eyes on an alien. Well, maybe on the way down we did. I don't remember it. I don't. I have heard, though, fifth-dimensional being speaking, and I know that there's a better place than here. Win the game. Let's play to win. Even if we don't win and get out of here without squandering a lot of energy, things will be better. They will be better. I was thinking today, what do I envision? You know, I'm getting older. I don't pay a lot of attention to it. But I know more people that are dead than are alive. You've been around a while when you experienced that. But I was thinking, how do I picture what happens after death? It used to be not very long ago. What I pictured was, well, the first thing I'm going to run into on the other side, so to speak, is the demiurge, who's going to hand me a line of BS and lay a guilt trip on me. Karma and sin, all that junk, root that out. Telling me that you're getting there, you can do better, go on back. But that's over. As of November, what is it? November 11th, 2016. The game was won. November 11, 2016. There was a winner. A source player won the game, and there were some changes made. I've talked about it. I'm bringing it up now because we're going to be talking about soul contracts. A lot of that is null and void at this point. And as I go through it, I'll explain that. Remember, this is all source. This is, that's the hard thing to get, you know. I don't know about you, but it used to be for me. I always thought I had to start at the bottom and figure things out in a progression upwards, so to speak. Like get the very, very, very basics and then try to improve upon that and work upwards, trying to find whatever it was I was seeking. Which, by the way, when I found what it was I was looking for, it was none other than myself. It was never lost. That's another story. I watched a video today on a channel that I follow because it's entertaining. It's entertaining, you know. But one of the things that I took away from it is I said, you know, we spend so much time trying to build ourselves up and improving ourselves, graduating frequency levels, so to speak, trying to raise our frequency, trying to get going from the third dimension to the fifth dimension. And we expend time and energy and worry that we aren't going to make it and something's wrong and oh, what if I'm not good enough and oh, they look like they're way ahead of me. That's garbage, man. You are source. There's nobody ahead of you and there's nobody behind you. There are different experiences. That's what there are. And it's you, source, experiencing them. Anyhow, getting back to what I was saying about trying to climb and improve. And I thought it's much easier to start at the top and realize that nothing exists that is not source, and that you are that is. You are that source in the form that you have taken and in the experiences that you are having. It is source experiencing itself as you, as me. Start at the top. Understand you are source. And then, rather than trying to climb up, start skating down. I don't know if that makes sense to any of you. It certainly does to me. I wish I'd have thought that way 20 years ago. 10 years ago, 5 years ago. But I did search all my life, and it was hard. It was hard. It was very, very, very hard. Every time I thought I was getting somewhere, it was one of those things, take 2 steps forward and get knocked back 3. That's what it seemed like. But anyhow, back to what we were talking about. Part 4. Part 4. So, we covered the agreed upon pregame assumptions, and we're moving down to, I'm looking at this diagram that I had made, which there's a link to. The contract phase with the demiurge. Okay, this is where we're getting ready to go into the game. This gets a little bit complicated, and I'm not going to try to explain those complications at this moment. I'm going to save it for a video all of itself, and what I'm talking about is how you, as a source fractal, coming into this game to play it knowingly, you picked the character that you wanted to play, not your name. You picked a character, you picked the timeline in which you wanted to play it, and if you look at this diagram, well, let me see. This one here, actually. I get that on the camera there. See where it says North America, Far East Asia, and what have you? Well, you picked the timelines when you wanted to play that character. Now remember, you are a source fractal, a fractal of source. You have a tremendous amount of energy. A lot of it you bet to come into this game. How can source lose, actually? You can have some experiences you may not have had to have in your game, and once the game is over as a whole, or your game is over, but that's another story. We'll get into that. When we get into it's almost like the psychology of the game, how it's played. Remember, we're talking about the flow and the framework. I've been talking for 3.5 videos now about how the game is built, how we created it, and how to the point that we're getting into it. And right now is where we're just about getting ready to enter into the game. You have a tremendous amount of energy. And you, as a source fractal, have the ability and had the ability to fractalize yourself. You might have fractalized yourself into, let's say 20 bundles of energy. Each bundle had the same amount of energy. My mentor, the winner of this game, calls that your synergy cell. If you decided that you wanted to live 20 lives on 20 different timelines, anywhere from like 6000 BC to 2900 AD, whatever, you had that choice. Let's say you picked 20 lives that you wanted to live on 20 different timelines. You laid down beside your bet. You had to fractalize your energy into 20 specific packets of energy. It's called your synergy cell. It's the same amount of energy for every life. I'm going to get into this deeper in another video because it can be confusing. It can be confusing, especially with me trying to explain it. No, I'm not getting down like that on myself. So you picked 20 lives that you wanted to live on 20 different timelines. And the thing of it is, I don't care if it was 3,000 years ago. I'm speaking about how we perceive linear time, whether it was 3,000 years ago or 3,000 years in the future or right now. You are living those 20 lives now. Right now. Because there really is no past and future. It's always now. Always. It's a difficult thing to deal with our minds and can try to recondition the mind from thinking in terms of linear time, past, present, future, into now. Now. But you can do it. You can do it. You'll find that you reach a point where you have no thoughts of yesterday. And if you do, you recognize it for what it is, and it's just a thought, a fleeting thought. Nor do you take any thought for tomorrow. You're always present. And what's coming at you, what experiences are coming, you're just flowing with them. If you fight them, they'll fight back. What you resist will persist. Hear that, any of you that have addiction problems. I don't want to go there. So yeah, like my mentor, the winner, spoke about, these 20 different lives is like playing 20 different bingo cards. The more cards you play, the better chance you have to win, go bingo. Now, all the bingo cards are the same size. If you're playing 1 or 31, all the bingo cards are the same size. That's your packet of energy. And a lot of players did just that. Now, there are what's called elite source players. These are players who, in the primary matrix, remember I said that just to qualify to get into this game, you had to have won at least 55% of the over 200 games that are in the primary matrix, just to qualify to get into this game. There are some source players who won all the games in the primary matrix. They won them all. They're called elite source players. Yes, there is a hierarchy in the game. There is. I used to have trouble with that until I understood it. It's a game. Sure, there's going to be hierarchies, but there are elite source players who've won all the games. They didn't have a choice to choose 20 or 200 different lives or timelines to try to win the game. They had two, and that's it. And from the time the game began, the elite source player played those same two games, same two characters nearly, same stage, nearly almost everything identical, life after life after life after life after life after life after life. And that's hard to understand because all of that's going on now. But like I said, we'll get to that in another video. So anyhow, you said, okay, you told the demiurge, this is what I want to do now. As soon as you told the demiurge, which is artificial intelligence, so nothing in our world of science has even been thought of when we're talking about the magnitude of power, elegance, the demiurge that we created has. The demiurge orchestrates part of the primary matrix too, especially the physical plane. The demiurge is on the physical plane of the primary matrix. As a source player, you never ever leave the primary matrix. You only dream that you're in a secondary matrix. It's like the game box. It's like looking at a video game on your computer screen or on your television using Xbox. You're just dreaming this. That's hard to wrap a mind around. So yeah, the demiurge is smart. You pick your lives, you pick your timelines. The demiurge creates for you a script. A name, a date of birth, your date of death, your character, where on earth you're going to be playing that character, and there are other things which we'll get into down the road a little bit, not in this video. Your name is your soul contract. So you can mess your soul up real bad in this game. You cannot mess up your source fractal. That's source. Soul is, well, we talked a little bit about soul, and I will talk about it later more too in other videos. A soul is something you can mess up playing this game because it's mental, it's subconscious, it's emotional, and the soul cage is physical. This body, this avatar that you're looking at resembles very, very, very closely my physical body, in which I'm having this dream right now. This dream of making a YouTube video. I'm dreaming this. You're dreaming you're watching it. Isn't it marvelous? It's hard not to ask yourself, how can that be? That's when the lights come on and you know it. Oh, yeah. Then you can start making YouTube videos. Make a Facebook page or something, whatever. Watch what you say, though. People will think you're nuts. That's okay. It's part of the game. So anyhow, you get this contract prepared for you. It's scripted. It's scripted. It's like you being an actor on a stage and the producer hands you a script and says, this is your part. You play your lines. You speak your lines. You are in the situations with other actors, soulless or not, with other actors playing their parts, and you're in a play. It's like Shakespeare says, all the world is a stage and we are the players, and that's correct. I wonder how much Shakespeare actually understood. I do. But you, from the time you're born, you experience birth. You come in with your mind wiped. We don't remember what happened before all of this. You can start remembering. But it takes a little work. You got to make the intention to beat this game. It's not easy. You knew that coming in. But anyhow, you play this character, whatever the character is. You've agreed to it. The demiurge says, okay. Now remember, you're a fractal that's accumulated a soul, and you're making this deal with the devil, nearly. You're saying, okay, man, I'm betting this amount of energy I can get in there, and Demiurge is more than happy to accommodate you. That's why we created it, to administer this game. It runs everything. But it too is source. Remember that. There's nothing that is not source. Just a manifestation of source. Demiurge says, okay, Joe, here's your part, here's your character, here's where you're going to live, blah, 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 da-da, da-da, da-da. You agree to it all. You're hooked up to the demiurge, the fractal, the soul, the body if you're still in one. If not, you're assigned a body. Remember I said some fractals lost their bodies in the drug wars. They're assigned a body. All of that's put into a pod, which is part of the demiurge. You're hooked up neurally. Think of a virtual reality game like we see them on TV. I've never tried one out in the stream, but and then your mind is wiped. Your mind is wiped. The mind's still there, but there's little to nothing in it. Even the subconscious, it's wiped. There may be a little bit residual echoes, imprints left in it, but they're well hidden. Once your mind is wiped, you're put to sleep. the demiurge clicks on and that data starts flowing to your mind, and you are sleeping, dreaming, this full immersion, three-dimensional, duality-based, illusory matrix game of life. And you chose it all. You helped to create it all. You created the demiurge. Now, I started talking about this, and it used to be, anyhow, let me put it this way. It used to be that when your game was over, in other words, when you experienced death, you'd run right back into the demiurge, and it would trick you into returning. We call it reincarnation. In linear time, that's been going on for 1,000,000 years. Way over 1,000,000 years. In linear time. In the time of source timelessness, now. That's another story. There's only been one winner. That's when the game changed a little bit. Some things were changed. Source, it's almost like it came down from on high, so to speak. There is no more reincarnation. As of November 11, 2016, no new player has come into this game. That might be a hard thing to hear for some people. My daughter just had a baby. What does that tell me? Who wants to face something like that? It's okay. It's all source. It's all source. As source players, we all came into this game together. If you're looking at it in linear time, long ago. And we've experienced in the dream the illusion of generation to generation to generation to generation to generation of advancement. Like I said, technology is advanced, certainly. In the game, men's hearts. In the game, the heart is still a pretty vicious thing. In a lot of what is manifest humans, be they players or soulless entities that are just running in your mind. Like everything else that appears in this game, it's data running in your mind. From that guitar, maybe to my next door neighbor. I am not soulless. I know that. I know what I am. I am a source player. I am source, experiencing myself as this, playing this now. And there are things going on. It's a big, big, big primary matrix. There's lots going on. We get visited by UFOs. Sure we do. So what? That's source is that, being that, coming here, and source is this, seeing that, and it's all for fun. Some of it isn't so fun, but that's part of the experience. Some of it's downright ghastly. That's part of the experience. So you've just entered the matrix. You've been put to sleep. Your mind was wiped. You're being fed data that you're neurally hooked up to the demiurge. You never leave the primary matrix. You do not. That's where you are dreaming. Your body is on Saturn. We dream Saturn in a third dimensional reality. The planet Saturn, let's say you were dreaming it in a fifth dimensional reality. The planet Saturn would look much different. It would look much more hospitable and inviting, because you're seeing it from a higher dimension. While we're stuck in the third dimension, that's a very difficult thing to do. You can, at times, tap in to a higher dimension and get a glimpse of something that you've never seen before from that perspective, from that dimension. Our perspective is 3D right now. How many planes and dimensions and frequencies and densities are there? I don't know. I wrote down 12 just so it would have something to measure by, to show that it's a descension and an ascension. And we are not going any lower than the first density. However, you can experience something lower. A man, let's say there is a player, not an entity, and not a soulless one, because they're not source players. We are. Let's say a source player has not had such a good game. Has made a lot of bad choices. A lot of it was scripted. Never got out of the red zone. What my mentor called the red zone. That's frequency levels 3 and 4. Source player can't go any lower than that, or he'd be an animal or a stone. We come in at 3 and 4. You got to get out of that red zone. People in the red zone, most of them don't know they're in the red zone, number one. Most of them never heard of the Matrix game of life, even though they helped to create it. So I am on here. I hope somebody will hear something and say, hey, oh man, thank you. That's all right. In order to get out of that low animalistic frequency, driven by lust, appetites, and to get up into frequency level 5, where you can unlock that script that you made a deal with the demiurge to act out, where you can unlock that. That means you don't have to adhere to it anymore. Some of the things you will, like the assumptions and some other things. But at that point, you're free to make good, solid choices. The game is all about choices. How you play the game. We'll get into that. But there is no more reincarnation. Now, why is that? The game's been won. Another thing that happened at that point, as long as a source fractal was in and trapped in this game, sleeping, dreaming it. That's source energy. As long as there was a play, every other player could have been out of the Matrix game, but if even one was left, the game would go on. It would go on. Now, flip that. There was a winner, November 11th, 2016. The game started winding down. No more reincarnation. That's a good thing from how I see it. I don't know how you see it. I've experienced pain and suffering. Okay? So have you. I don't want it anymore. And I don't have to have it. I've experienced it. I know what it is. Nobody has to explain it to me and teach me it. I know what it is. And I choose not to experience any longer. But there could be a player who has gone so low that all the player knows, him or her, so to speak, is pain and suffering and hurting him or herself and others and blah, blah, blah. And is convinced that when he dies, he is going to hell. What do you think is going to happen when his game ends? You do not want to join him. You do not want to join that experience that he has created by his beliefs. That's why I've said you've got to look at your belief systems. Why do you believe what you believe? This Matrix game of life is a game of illusion. It's full of traps and lies and subterfuge. That's how we designed it to be. Hard. Because we hadn't ever experienced hard. This hard. So when we designed a game having never experienced how hard it is, it ended up being far harder than we ever imagined it when we created it. Do you understand that? We weren't working and creating from the levels of pain and suffering that we experience in this game. We outdid ourselves. We said, okay, we're going to create discomfort, which in the primary mate and on the physical plane of the primary matrix, things are not all that great. They're a little bit better than this, and in other ways they're not. But that's okay. You'll go past that. We didn't have any conception of the depths of pain and suffering and the fear that's associated with death. We imagined and did it as close as we thought it would be like, and it turned out to be a little bit deeper than what we thought it would be like. And the game's difficult. It's hard. Now that man who dies, his game ends, and he starts experiencing his created hell that he created because of his beliefs. You know, if you believe something and you die, The only thing that changes is the avatar disappears and starts wasting away. Your belief system hasn't changed just because you die. So be careful what you ask for. Choose what you want and choose wisely. And play the game. Be careful with the traps. Now that man will get out of that state. But that source, experiencing that. So Jesus descended into hell. And he took captivity captive. That means he took everybody in there out. That doesn't mean nobody didn't go back to that kind of state. It's all an experience of beliefs. And that's not based on sin, and it's not based on karma. And it's not based on religion. It's not based on any of that. It's based on what you believe. I don't know. I spent an hour again talking. You have the diagrams. They explain what I'm talking about. We just entered the game, the Matrix game. We've just entered it. Now, that's the framework and the flow of the game from creating it all the way into the game. Now we're going to talk about how we get out of it. If you don't like what's going on and you want relief, we're going to talk about how the game is played. And there are rules. Number one, don't eat anything that at one time had a heartbeat. If you insist on eating animals, it's a rule. It's a rule. It's a rule. It could have been apples. It could have been bananas. But it's animals. If you insist on eating animals, you are not going to get any higher than a frequency level 4, and you're going to squander your energy, and when you leave here, I will be your boss, because there is a hierarchy. Sir, would you please go get me a cup of coffee? No, I'm just kidding. But there is a hierarchy. And we made a wager. We bet our energy. I've made up my mind to win this game. I've made up my mind. It is a mindset to win this game. And I refuse to leave here in bad shape, having squandered all of my energy, all of my wager, and cast it to the wind. No. It's just a mindset. Okay, that's enough for today. I want to thank you all for listening so long. An hour and 3 minutes, 6 seconds. So, in the next video, I'm going to start picking up on, since we're in the game now, I'm going to start talking about how the game is played, what to look out for, and I hope I can give you some hints. Okay? I certainly was given a lot of them. A lot of them. And they helped. They helped. I'm making videos. Now, it doesn't mean I'm anything special. I'm nothing more or less than you are. It's like the coach of a football team teaching the young rookies how to play the game. That's how the game works. That's how everything works. And it's all source experiencing as you and as me. And the possibilities are unlimited. Thanks for hanging around. I will see you in the next video. Bye.